Welcome to Generation Truth Podcast with Carey and Rebekah Charles.
We declare the Lord is good, His mercy is everlasting, and His truth endureth to all generations.
So we're on part 2 of 8 principles of God's way to marriage. We talked about the surrender part and yielding yourself to God, and then performance of God's duties. Basically, you do your part. That was our wonderful friend. You do your part, and God does His part. Then also, there's the expectancy of God's guidance. You know, when you are faithful, you can always count on the fact that God will be faithful to guide you. And then number 4, there was watchfulness of God's guidance. You should expect it and watch out for it. Look out for where God's going to lead you, how God is going to lead you, and be excited to follow Him. So, number 5.
Number 5, character as priority. Charles M. Alexander, as he was trying to discern God's future for his life, actually, he went to a church with Dwight L. Moody, and his eyes were drawn to this young lady who was serving in that church that they were ministering in. I believe she was either playing the piano or the organ. I believe it was the organ. And he watched her and her character. He watched her throughout the service, and I don't know the exact timing, but very soon afterwards, he approached the mom of this young lady, and he asked the mom a few questions, and because he'd already felt led of the Lord to pursue this young lady, they were very soon married after that.
Wow, isn't that so cool?
That's crazy. That's weird. He didn't even know her. But again, he was expecting God to fulfill this desire of his heart as he was faithful. And yes. What a beautiful story.
Yeah, and we're not saying that you should go and try to get to know somebody and marry them within just a few days. But this is just an example of somebody who followed the Lord's will for his life. And isn't it so cool? Hey, babe, she was a organist, you're a pianist, so this is very close.
So, number 5, character as priority. Now, that does not mean that there are other things that are important, but character should be at the top of the list for the person in your life and whom you believe that God is leading you to marry.
Absolutely. You know, going back to Genesis 24, like we talked about in the last episode, this continues on, and verses 18 through 20 actually talk about this. It says, and she said, talking about Rebekah, drink, my lord, and talking to the servant, and she hasted and let down her pitcher upon her hand and gave him drink. And when she had done giving him drink, she said, I will draw water for thy camels also until they have done drinking. And she hasted and emptied her pitcher and into the trough and ran again unto the well to draw water and drew for all his camels. Okay, this is just incredible because camels drink tons and tons and tons of water. They drink so much water. And this woman is not only giving water, she's working hard to give this servant some water, but she's also working to fill the water trough for his camels, and she has character. She's a hard worker. She's not lazy, and this servant sees that. You know, I could tell you so many things about the character of Rebekah, and I know we're not here to lift each other up. We're here to lift up the Lord, but God gave me Rebekah as a special gift, and she's a woman of character. She's hardworking. You know, you should want to marry somebody that has character, has godly character.
Right. Number 6, a new commitment of his natural feelings. Verse 7, rest in the Lord and wait patiently for him. Again, in verse 7, it acknowledges that, okay, our default is going to be to fret because of him who prospers in his way, because of the man who bringeth wicked devices to pass, to lean on our own understanding. But again, here, just be frank, be direct, don't beat around the bush.
Yes.
I think this is where a lot of dating couples can kind of get hurt, just because the guys aren't clear in their intentions, and the women, of course, are like 5 steps ahead. They're ready to get married at the altar, and the guys over here are like, I don't really even like you. Like, just
or their emotions are all over, and the guys, and you know, women think differently than men. It's very clear. We understand that. Men are thinking one thing a lot of times while the lady's thinking another. And so there's a statement out there: to be clear is to be kind, or to be unclear is to be unkind.
Yes. So be frank. And that word frank is really, really good. It means to be direct, to be honest and sincere in your speech.
Yeah.
That means you're not going to be inappropriate in how you're voicing your feelings. But again, be frank, be honest about how you feel with each other. Absolutely.
And then this one is an interesting one, but it is so important for us to remember. No dating the way of the world, but instead have a clear confession of love. Okay, we talked about this in previous episodes with the dating and courtship. There's a dating which the world has taken and made it just, let's just have fun, let's just experience, let's just have emotions. And you know what? All three of those are a part of a relationship and can be very good. But you are not to, your whole purpose and goal in getting to know somebody is not for fun, but it is to marry them, if that's what God would have for you in that relationship.
In Psalm chapter 37 and verse 30, it says, "The mouth of the righteous speaketh wisdom."
Yeah.
So it's not going to be spewing out things, all that's in their heart. Again, you do not need to spill out everything you're feeling in your heart.
Yeah.
Because our heart is deceitful, it's wicked. But it is important that you are clear in this confession of, again, true love.
Yes,
not all the feelings there.
Yes, have that purpose in mind and make it clear what that purpose is. Make sure you're both on the same page with that. And verses 30 through 40 in Genesis 24, the servant, he makes his expectations very clear to Rebekah's family. He talks to them, he talks to the dad, and he gets to know him, and he makes it very clear. If you're not, I understand sometimes it's very hard to get the blessing of the future in-laws, okay? Some cases it doesn't work out, but I really believe this with all my heart, that you should do your absolute best to honor them and to not go around what they want you to do, but you do your absolute best by God's help and power to honor them and honor their wishes as close as you can, and God will honor that. God will help you through that. Make sure you have that purpose in mind, and just like that servant did, he made his expectations clear. He talked to the dad, be very clear, be very frank, as we've already said. So that is number 7. And then lastly, number 8, recognition of God's gift.
Here in verse 23 of Psalm 37, we read that the steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and he delighteth in his way. A few weeks after Carey and I began to date, I had all the things that were lining up. We had all the hard conversations about standards and about alcohol and divorce and
convictions,
child rearing and all of that. And I thought, man, we align on everything. And I was just waiting for red flags to come rising up for me to be able to have to break it off. But they never came. And I thought, surely there must be something. And yet God used actually Elizabeth Elliot in a podcast I was listening to help me remember that, Rebekah, this is what you prayed for. Instead of just trying to find something wrong, just say, yes, this is what I have for you. And when I did that, God's peace came. And months before we got engaged, I already knew that Carey was the man that God had for me.
Yes.
So as you have been faithful to surrender, to faithfully fulfill God's duties, to expect God's guidance, his to put character as a priority, to have a new commitment of these natural feelings, to not date but have a clear confession of love, then I can recognize and thank God for his gift, because I know that this has been of him and not of myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And the servant of Abraham, he says, and it came to pass that when Abraham's servant heard their words, talking to Rebekah's dad, and how he gave his blessing, he worshiped the Lord, bowing himself to the earth. And this is really what it's about. You follow God's will for your life. God will make it clear. And then don't forget to give him glory, because he's the one that worked it all And let's give him the worship and praise that he is worthy of. Let's recognize God's gift in our life. And so remember, these are truths from the Word of God. And this is just 8 simple steps or simple principles of God's way to marriage. Let's keep this in mind, and you can search out the scriptures. Let's get to know the truth so we can live the truth, so we can give the truth.
Because God's truth endures to all generations.